Jay, what you know about the Book of Jubilees, aka Little Genesis?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It follows the history, and it's kind of like it's a little dry. It's a detailed account.
I'm not
What
gonna lie.
happened?
So,
It's a little dry.
Enigmites, welcome to Enigma Cast. You might not know this. When Jay's not writing books, he's a reading them, and I am too. He read them good too. He read them real good, and he tells me what they say in those books, right? And
Yeah.
it's been a while since me and Professor X got together, and we broke down a good old-fashioned biblical, ancient, archaeological, apocryphal type of story. And he and I been, there it is, right there in the back.
Yeah.
And so when we're not out hyping dogmans and Bigfoots and breaking, earth-shattering mythos and bringing the reality, changing your reality, we're reading books, so you don't have to. So tonight, Enigmites, what we're going to do is we're going to get into the Book of Jubilees. And if you've never read the Book of Jubilees, you really have to want to read the Book of Jubilees because, man,
You really gotta want it, man.
It's kind of long, kind of dry.
Yeah.
A little bit messed up. However, we're going to get into it. So, Jay, let's get into it, buddy. So,
let's do it.
We're going to break it down to you. We're going to tell you the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and just give you the highlights of it. I did pick up some good, interesting stuff. So did Jay. Jay, before we get into it, tell everybody who you are, where they can find you, and all that good stuff.
So, I'm Jay Noon. I'm also JS Noon, which is my pen name for my book. I wrote a book called Seeds of Terra. It's a science fiction novel. Jay writes books. It's a science fiction novel called Seeds of Terra. It's on Amazon if you want to pick it up. It's nice and cheap.
Has a Han Solo-like character in there. I'm not going to say that it's loosely based on my life because it is absolutely loosely based on my life. All right.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some correlations between characters for sure.
Jay is also the owner of 11 Dog Media, Turtles All the Way Through. Go to his website, 11dogmedia.com, if you want to pick up some
all the way through,
some good merch and stuff like that. Turtles All the Way Down.
Turtles All the Way Down. There you go.
Nice. Yeah. So anyway, let's get into this, brother.
Yeah, let's do this. This is one of my favorites right here. It's like, this is one of my favorite topics.
Not even a top 10 for me. But I'll tell you,
really?
it's got some good stuff in here too. And I got it down, man. It's because we have different angles on it. But anyway, so
yeah.
Give everybody a little bit of what the Book of Jubilees is. You might not know that the current King James Bible you read is written by King James, and some stuff was taken out of it. And also before that, there was a small little taking apart of the Bible that you read called the Council of Mycenae by a pagan emperor named Jay. His name is not Nero. Constantine, I think is what his name was, right?
Oh, I don't remember. That one is not in the brain pan.
So this book was taken out of everything except Ethiopian Orthodox canon. Now, the Book of Jubilees was initially stuck in between the Book of Genesis and the Book of Enoch.
Exodus.
So I did not. Is it Exodus?
Oh yeah, no, Genesis. Well, I don't know did Enoch come after, like if they were going to tell a story.
Yeah, Enoch
does Enoch come after Exodus?
Yeah, before Exodus, I think.
Right.
And the sequences make sense because basically what the Book of Jubilees will do is it takes the Book of Genesis and it breaks it down and it digs into a little bit deeper and it expands something as well. And a little bit, not gonna lie, man, slightly racist. We'll get into that. We'll get into that as it goes along. Slightly racist. And,
well, I mean,
yeah, but consider the time. Consider the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's in my cliff notes at the end. But it tells some things that the Book of Genesis doesn't tell you, right? It goes into a little bit more detail on what happens during the creation, and it actually goes into a subject that I absolutely 100% know has been removed from the Bible on purpose. Talks about angels, how they were created, when, where, and why they were created. It also talks about something that I have been banging this drum pretty hard for, time. And I know that sounds like it's going to be weird, but if you stick around, I'll unpack all this for you. Jay, are you ready? You ready? You got anything to add so far, Jay, about what is the Book of Jubilees?
Yeah. So what's interesting to me about it, and this is what I found in some of my research while I was looking into this, a lot of the early texts on kind of, I want to say, I'm not going to say all of them, but a lot of the early texts from cultures all over the world start out like this, right? They start out very dry, a very technical, like they're telling, like they're preserving this specific text, right? Like this is very dry, and it goes through lists of family lines and like all of this stuff. Like it doesn't read like a religious allegory. It reads like a record or a chronicle, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that is interesting from a couple different perspectives. That also shares characteristics with other texts of early, like some of the earliest texts are all chronicles rather than, they don't have a religious overtone.
No. I found it very litigious as well, man. It's very litigious. It's more of a, when you get past some of the stuff that I found was pretty good knowledge, it dug into more of like a very strict law. Like
yeah,
a manual.
It's codifying.
Yeah.
It's like, so I mean, what's the best way to control a caveman with a big old stick, right? Yeah. Like tell him the gods say that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Right? Like.
Yeah. So we're going to skip over everything that you could already find basically in regular Genesis. I don't want to go down and break into, that stuff.
Yeah,
what we did is we peeled back the things that really aren't in Genesis. And the one thing that's lacking in Genesis is it talks about that God on day one created the angels, right? Mm-hmm. And he created 4 specific types of angels, right? And I'm going to break these down for you real quick because I think you have the angel of the presence, angels of sanctification, guardian angels that are real. Every time I get in my Tesla, I look out and there's a figure standing up on the thing, and that's my guardian angel. Like, don't leave without me. Angels of punishment, right? And you also goes into what they talk about the fallen angels, but we already know about the watchers and stuff like that. So basically, the angels of the presence, these are high-ranking angels who stand in direct presence of God. They are tasked with delivering God's commandments and revelations to humanity. In the Book of Jubilees, one of these angels is often portrayed as the narrator, revealing the contents to the book of Moses, right? Now that is a contradiction in itself when you read into it, because Moses was supposedly in direct contact with God, speaking to God, right? Book of Jubilees, like, no, it was one of the angels that was relaying the message, right? There's a difference, and a pretty huge difference, actually, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah, right.
The way that I was taught was that to hear God's voice, that no human could really like handle that, so they spoke through the Metatron.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then also too, there's a no one's allowed to see God's face or you'll die. Right. Like that's no one's allowed to look at his face.
Something like that. But see, I'm not buying it.
So, okay, hold on. So angels.
I'm not buying it.
No, I know you're not. Angels of sanctification. These are the angels that are responsible for sanctifying and purifying. They assist in maintaining the holiness of God's creation, which is us. They are mentioned as singing praises to God and glorifying him continually, right? Then you have the guardian angels, right? Now, the guardian angels, everybody's pretty much in their life, at least all the people I know have said, man, you got a guardian angel, man. A guardian angel is looking after you, something like that. Now, Jubilees actually emphasizes the idea of guardian angels that guards not only people, but nations and individuals, right? And I'll tell you, it's funny, one of the things caught there as well is that we are assigned specific guardian angels, right? Like we have like a specific, like, we all have our individual ones, right? And each nation is said to have its own angelic prince or protector as part of God's divine order. And if you read the book of Daniel, it talks about the prince of Persia keeping another angel from getting near him until Michael showed up. So I thought that was pretty fascinating myself right there, man. You know, like, so,
yeah, right. Yeah, it gets nice and sticky in there for a minute.
And I
Think about that for a minute.
I don't want to be that guy, but if you substitute angel with
Jedi, I am that guy.
with Jedi, I'm just saying with
Jedi.
Yeah, with Jedi, the Sith Lord. I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
And that unpacks a lot right there, man. So the fourth one was the angels of punishment.
Uh-huh.
The name's pretty self-explanatory.
So they've got water, they've got sanitation, they've got police.
Yeah. Messengers.
They've got messengers.
And now you got the enforcers here. And what they're doing is basically they're tasked with executing divine judgment and punishment on those who transgress God's laws. They often appear in a apocalyptic context, carrying out God's justice, right? So the Book of Jubilees goes on, right, and one of the things that the Book of Jubilees contradicts is that God is hands-on all the time. He's the one that's dishing out everything. The Book of Jubilees will tell you that no, that
he delegated. It
would be the angel of the presence speaking to you while the angel of punishment divvied out the punishment, right? Angels of punishment, right? And each of these angels, and there's also angels that were created. According to the Book of Jubilees, right? Angels are created to take care of everything in existence, including time. Including time. There's angels assigned to our timeline to maintain the timeline. That blew my mind, right? But it also said that, this is actually fascinating too, and I actually put some thought into this.
So you're saying that God left behind the TVA?
Yeah, yes, exactly, because it says too that God, not only on day one, time wasn't a thing until God created it on day one. It wasn't a thing. So he says he created time specifically, and I'll go into that. That goes into my next topic, what I'm going to talk about. But if you're an immortal being living in the vastness of eternity, time is not a concept that would even be concerned to you, right?
Right. It gets very slippery there, right? Like, okay, so I think of humans as like a 3.5, maybe a 3.75 dimensional creature.
Correct.
Right? Like we're in 3 dimensions, but we also can understand our past. Mm-hmm. Like we can see our past clearly. Mm-hmm. And a little bit of our future, right? Like we can predict about kind of like, I know I'm going to have to go to work tomorrow, yeah. Right? I know I'm going to have to eventually take a shower, right? Like there are things that you predict you have the predictive ability, right? So that's where the 3.75 comes in. But if you think about a 4th dimensional or a 5th dimensional creature, right? Mm-hmm. Like something that understands time from a outside perspective because it can see it. Like it can perceive it in a way that we can't, right? Like can be external from it. That's kind of how that works. But
it's a great point.
That's all theoretical and
it's a great point. And the Book of Jubilees said that time was created for our benefit. We're on a divine calendar, right? And I'll go into that in a second. We're on a divine calendar, but also too, a 4th dimensional being looking down into a 3rd dimensional world. The Earth actually does look flat because it's in a toroid position from the 4th dimension. So you flat earthers run crazy with that theory on there, man. But if you're living in that 3rd dimension, which we are, we're 3-dimensional beings, a third dimensional being, it wouldn't appear flat, right? So, and here's your bonus, Enigmites. The Book of Jubilees goes on to talk about the Watchers. We've talked about that ad nauseum on here. I love that story. These were the angels that descended to earth, corrupted humanity, similar to the narrative. It is the narrative of the Book of Enoch, right? Angels married human women, leading to the birth of Nephilim, giant offspring, and they did forbidding teaching and genetic experiments and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the cause of them humanity's corruption, right? And our fall, right? So we've got plenty of episodes. Hit the Enigma cast archives, go in there, pull it up. We're not talking about the Watchers because I won't stop talking about it if we get into it, and we roll with it. So the Book of Jubilees goes into good detail on that. And the Book of Jubilees is one of the things that I found fascinating when I read this is the fact that they say the following: that God created time on day one and put angels over protecting our timeline, and that our timeline is sacred to us, right? And that we are on a divine calendar, and no matter what we do, that divine calendar will happen. So point A the alpha eventually will go to the omega, right? And so
what he's saying is, from a physics perspective, we're on a deterministic timeline.
Exactly. And that's
interesting to me.
It is. And also too, there is great conspiracy theories out there about some secret supercomputer. I can't remember the name of it. Operation Looking Glass, or what it was, where we've had AI for a while, and the satanic cult were trying to find ways to, because they know the fight is coming, to avoid it, and the computer kept always leading it back to the final end. There's nothing they could do.
There's no avoidance of that particular nexus point in time. Right? Period.
Exactly right.
That's interesting because I had a long time ago, a friend and I went down this weird rabbit hole about physics and time, right? So there's really our perception of time moving forward, right? Our physics says that's just our perception. You can go backwards and forwards. It's kind of not that's not a hard and fast rule. It's more of a guideline, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it from a fourth dimensional perspective or whatever, I don't know. If you're outside of time, right? To me, it looks like a big tumbleweed, right? Like if you look at a human's timeline, it looks like a big tumbleweed, right? Because each of those decisions that you've made can lead down a different path, right? Like instead of having pancakes for breakfast one morning, you had bacon, right? And because it was too greasy, when you got to the office, you had to go to the bathroom immediately, and that completely shifted that particular timeline, right? So you have all these little branches and things coming off, but eventually all those branches lead to one conclusion.
Yeah.
Right? You in the ground.
Yeah, I simplify it like this, man. Jumping out of an airplane at 30,000 feet, you can do backflips, whirly whirls, left, rights, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Eventually, you're hitting the ground, right? So it's like that. Another thing too that goes into how we're completely different than every other creature on this planet. Human beings are the only ones that plan. Now, let me clarify that right there. Yes, wolves will coordinate. Orcas will coordinate, right? But they don't think about Tuesday, Wednesday, and they definitely don't think about vacation 4 months from now, right?
Look at it this way: we have the most complex planning.
Yeah, it's us
on the planet, right?
Yep. And so I thought that was interesting, but also the Book of Jubilees proves a theory that I've been hitting on for a while about how our calendar is completely wrong. Now, what the Book of Jubilees really is also talking about is a 49-year cycle. It's considered a jubilee. A 50-year cycle is considered a jubilee, right? And there was all this stuff in there about every 7 years blow a horn, go back. This is all, about 7,000 years ago, whenever this was written, right?
Yeah.
But they also talk about the pagan moon calendar, which we are on right now. And I've said this for the last 3 or 4 months. I've been talking about this. God put us on what is called a solar calendar. Our calendar is supposed to be based upon the sun. The current calendar that the entire world uses right now is the lunar cycle calendar, right? Now, how it's supposed to be broken down originally is the solar calendar is supposed to be 364 days with one day of reverence or resurrection day, divided into 4 seasons of 91 days each, with a 13-month, 28-day calendar, and again with 1 day of observation. Make 365. Now this makes perfect sense because a woman's cycle is every 28 days, right? So a woman's cycle used to be completely in sync with the moon. In fact, ancient civilizations used to use the moon. I'm sorry, they used to use that 28-day cycle to know, because having kids was important, right? To know when the best time was for children, right?
That makes sense.
This also would keep every single holiday or sacred day, in their terms, on the exact same day of every year, right? Every day, right? And the same thing, it would do the same thing right now. We wouldn't have every year, the day would not change from Thursday to Friday or whatever. It would just be the same, right? Now, the question you might want to ask is, why did they take this out and why did they change it? I'll tell you why they did it, right? For one, it was done by the Catholic Church. The calendar that we're on right now is called the Gregorian calendar, right? It was written by Pope Gregory, right? Now, the Gregorian calendar, and again, I just reposted this on my TikTok channel. You can go hit the link in my bio and go watch it. This guy did a great 6-minute video. I've been saying this for a long time. The Catholic Church is Mystery Babylon. You understand? In the Book of Revelations. In the Book of Revelations, it talks about the whore of Babylon and Mystery Babylon. The Catholic Church is Mystery Babylon. Now, Catholics are good people. I used to know some good Freemasons, but when you get to the top,
some Scientologists are good people too.
Exactly. When you get to the top and you have to put on those red robes, or you get high enough
things change, right?
Things change.
Yeah, for sure.
The Holy Roman Empire is just the Roman Empire. It never went away. In fact, I think I can't remember the last Caesar's name. It just
converted.
Yeah, the last Caesar gave all the power to the Pope. It's in the same location. It's in Rome.
Right.
Yeah. It didn't even move. It's on the same 7 hills, right? So
it's interesting, right?
Reason,
they just passed the reins on.
That's it.
Of control.
They just morphed. And if you don't believe me, go look at the post I did today about how the eagle has been around since Egypt, Babylon, Rome, and the U.S. and the head and all that stuff. Look at all that. Now, the reason why they changed this is because it's not Christianity. They changed it for what they call, and the reason why they did it is the reason why.
The whole detailed account of the interbreeding and the aftermath, probably had a little bit to do with it too.
Well, they wanted to weave in their pagan holidays, their pagan rituals.
Yeah, but think about that, right? Okay. To me, this is a story that was passed down over. So if we think about the flood, and you want to correlate the flood to the Younger Dryas event, because, the correlations are pretty close, right?
Yeah.
This is something that was verbally passed down for thousands of years and then written down eventually, right? But, there are some really, really weird idiosyncrasies about this story when you take the macro view and you, lump it together with other stuff. Right. And if nothing else, these men who were in these councils were men of knowledge, right? To a certain degree. Monks and priests were known to be men of reading and knowledge. That was kind of their job, right? So if you have a bunch of dudes that are kind of smart sitting around looking at this thing, they're going to put together what you and I put together. So there's some really hinky stuff going on here that we should probably just leave out, because then it sounds much less like a science fiction story.
Well, yeah, exactly. And And again, though, also there's hubris involved here, and I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna break it down now. So I'm gonna
There's
tell
a narrative.
you. Yeah. So yeah, man. So the calendar was definitely changed. The Sabbath day is actually Saturday. They moved it to Sunday, which is supposed to be the first day of the week. They want to tell you that's the last day of the week. It's not. It's Saturday is the seventh day. There's 13 zodiac signs, and here's the 13 months, right? You have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and here's the one they took out, the ninth one. It's called Ophiuchus, Ophiuchus, and then it goes Sagittarius, Capricorn,
Officius?
Passes, yeah, Officius, some Latin word or something
I don't
like
know.
that.
I'd have to look.
Ophiuchus, right? And then
Officius, because the PH is a F.
Yeah, Officius, whatever. I speak South.
I know. That's what I'm trying to interpret for everybody
else.
else.
And so, also, too, Julius Caesar named the month of July after himself, right? And gave himself 31 days, thinking that would be the maximum amount of numbers. Well, his predecessor, Augustus, named August after himself. And he said, if he's got 31 days, I got 31 days. So fun fact, Enigmites, August and July of birth have 31 days in it because Augustus wanted to be seen as equal to Julius Caesar. But again, here's where they don't do all their research and wipe the slate clean, because a lot of the months are named in Latin. And so Sept, which is supposed to be the 9-month, Sept is 7. October is 8th, not 10. Novia, November is 9. No. Dec, December is 10, not 12. So they didn't do their scrub right. And in the Book of Jubilees, it will tell you that it is an abomination or a sin to be not on God's divine calendar. And when you're not on that calendar, Jay, do you remember what it says happens to you?
No, I don't remember that part.
Chaos ensues. Now imagine that, right? The world
chaos ensues.
It says the Book of Jubilees will tell you that if we don't follow the divine calendar of 13 months, 28 days, one day of rest, aka April 1st, the day of resurrection, that the world will be in chaos. However, it does go on to say if we do go get back on that, then the world will be fine. So Enigmites, you've heard it here first. If come July, the United States of America moves into a 13-month calendar, somebody's been doing some reading over there, because that would be just way too coincidental, right?
The book specifically warns against following a lunar calendar, stating that using it will lead to corruption of sacred times, confusion of the years, disruption of the seasons, people celebrating festivals on the wrong days, and mixing holy with profane time.
Right, and that's exactly what they did. That's why, again, on the solar calendar, the last day of the year is March 31st, and April 1st is supposed to be the first day of the year, and it makes sense.
Spring, right?
Spring. You can't have death unless you have life. So spring would be the first day of the year where you're living, and then December, or whatever the March, whatever the last one when it rolled around, would be the end of winter. Who starts a year in the right in the middle of dead arse December when it's cold and everything's dead and it's miserable? Here's a fun fact for you too, Enigma. It's a fun fact.
I don't know, man.
Here's a fun fact for you.
Never made sense to me.
I've always hated New Year's Eve. I've always hated it. When me and this guy were together, hanging out in Japan, I've had people invite me out on New Year's Eve. I wouldn't go.
Nope.
I wouldn't go.
It's for amateurs.
It is, man. I stay. I cannot tell you how much I stay home on New Year's Eve. It's never felt right. It's never felt right. One time I went to a club.
I liked it. I always just wished it was a little bit warmer.
I went to a club one time in Japan, New Year's Eve, and I had a lot of attention, and I basically didn't want any of it. I sat in the corner, and I was with Clem. I was sitting in the corner. Waited till 2 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm ready to leave. I went home alone. I said, I'm out, man. I just left. I hate it. I hate it, right?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's fun to have a party with your friends, but going out on a back then, going out on the base bar at New Year's Eve was just not a fun experience, man. It was not. There was no good gonna happen there.
Yeah, it was deeper than that for me too, man. I've always felt disconnected.
Really?
I've always felt disconnected from it. Never felt any type of, like joy with it.
And I've always felt disconnected from everything.
Yeah.
So that's not new for me, man.
So anyways, Ethiopia is currently on a version of this calendar, right? I think however, I think they are on some strange.
Yeah, it's
30 days a month or something like that. I didn't really get a chance to get looked into it, but they're on this type of calendar as well, right? And fun fact, when you land in Ethiopia, your cell phone will automatically shift to their date and time. True story. So
cool.
So yeah, that's in the Book of Jubilees, and it warns about what's happening and what's not going on, right? And so how we should avoid this.
It's interesting. It's really, really, really super interesting to me. I approach it from a completely different angle, right? To me, it's so. If you look at how these line up with other texts of the time, like describing pre-flood, right? Because that's kind of always that's my favorite kind of thing to look at, right? And try to figure out, because post-flood we have archaeological records and we've got stories and eventually writings, right? But pre-flood stuff we don't have a lot, right? No. Or from my perspective, I don't have a lot of information about that particular period of time. So it's always fascinating to me to look at these stories and then correlate them with other stories, because the flood to me is fascinating because it kind of transcends geographical boundaries, right? Like it's a bunch of different cultures talking about a flood. And if taking it from a storytelling perspective, right? And talking about what you would need to teach a society for it to technologically advance, right? Talks about all that in there. That's, the angels came down and they were sent to teach men righteousness, but instead taught them metallurgy. But what's fascinating is that specifically, these specific things, right? Metallurgy and tool making, mathematics and writing, astronomy and calendar systems, medicine and healing arts, agricultural techniques and construction methods. Those are the core, right? It's in the Jubilees, it's in the Apokali from Mesopotamia, it's the Neteru in Egypt. All of these are credited, these outside entities are credited with teaching humanity these specific things, right? These six specific technology and how to do these specific cultural changes. It's like a blueprint for here's how you create a society, right?
Yeah.
And so it's weird to me when you look at it from the perspective of first contact. You've got these people, these non-human entities coming down and saying, oh, wait a minute, there's other things here. Well, now that we're here and they're here, we should, help them along, right?
Yeah.
But then things go awry, right?
Yeah, and don't forget too, Jay, that they teach law.
Right.
They teach law.
Yeah. Mathematics and writing and
I'm talking about you just can't cut a man's throat and take his wife. You just can't do that. They think law.
Right. There's rules.
There's rules, right? Yeah. Yes, there's rules.
Yeah,
right?
and that's kind of the beginning of that too, right? Because if you're gonna have, it says in here, man began to spread throughout the earth, right? Yeah. So their little genetic experiments started to just right? And now they got to regulate it somehow. So how do you regulate a bunch of savages?
Yeah. No, for sure.
You turn yourselves into gods.
Yeah. Or even add in the mystery, if they never portrayed themselves as gods but left, then you tell everybody God told me to say this, and then now that's where I go with this, man.
That's what I'm saying. It switches hands at some point, right? Where in order to maintain control, because me telling you not to kick that guy in the head carries much less weight than saying, well, the gods say that you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right? Because the human is challengeable.
Yeah. Who are you to tell me what to do, right? Like, who are you, right? And it also goes into, right, like King James, the reason why he wrote, he had a big problem. We did a show on this, is when he had a problem, with, I got to choose my words carefully here. He took certain aspects out of the Bible that had you questioning kingship or king's divine,
right?
King's divinity,
the divine right of kings. And
the Protestants were like, no. Yeah, they're like, yeah, no. So that's where the King James, I mean, that's a fact, man. That's why King James, KJV, that's why it came into existence, right? And again, man, like you can go online and look and you can see the exact verses where he had taken out. And it does challenge the kingship. I've never understood a monarchy. I understand power. Don't get me wrong, man. Like, I understand power. If the world breaks down into a post-apocalyptic society, right? The guy that's the smartest and knows how to survive and knows how to keep the tribe going and feed will rise to the top. His kid 8 generations later should have no right to be able to do that, right?
Right.
So
we found that out, though. We had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah. So
but what I'm saying is, maybe that started in a different way.
Yeah. So
right.
Yeah, exactly. So when I look at the current King of England, I think he's a moron. Right? I think he is he's a dork, right? I've watched enough Netflix. Like, this dude is a turd, man. He's not funny. He thinks he's hilarious, right? He's kind of, you don't know, are you scared to talk about him?
No, I don't scared to talk about him. No, I ain't worried about those guys coming and get me.
Yeah, right. Let me throw a date in your face, Jake. 1776. Let me throw a date in your face, bro.
My ancestors were not having any of that. They were on the front lines firing muskets with everybody else.
Yeah. So, I just don't get that concept.
No, the concept of monarchy, I totally get it.
No, I'm talking about why would you follow that?
Oh, I totally get that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get it from a 1,000 years ago perspective when that made sense, but it doesn't make sense now.
I mean, like if I'm working a cabbage field and need it up in the mud or whatever, and you show up on a horse and a full army, then maybe. But nah.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. They needed those guys back then because there were other people over on the other side of the river that were going to come and take your stuff unless those guys in armor were like standing at the edge of the river saying, yeah, no,
Charles,
it's a bad
that's
idea.
His name.
King Charles, yeah.
Not only do I think he's a dork, his kids are dorks.
It's an outdated notion.
Yeah, man. They're both dorks. The ginger makes me laugh, but the other one looks like a serial killer. I'm not messing with either one of them guys, man. So
look, man, there has been so many rumors over the millennia about like the royalty and what they're into.
No such thing as royalty. Only Jesus.
Shady shit going on. Only Jesus.
That's it, man. Jesus is the only one, and even then, he died for us, right? So look, I don't want to hear nothing from them guys. But here's something else, Jay, that I found to be interesting, man. In the Book of Jubilees, right? I didn't know this till today. That it actually names Adam and Eve's daughters, right? I didn't know they had daughters until right now, right? And so,
well, I mean, that would make sense, right?
It would make sense, right? But and also does something that I thought was like, okay, that kind of was like a little shocking. So Adam and Eve had 5 children. You might know them you might know them as the boys, Abel, Cain, they didn't get along, and Seth, right? They also had 2 daughters named Awan and Azura. Now, the Book of Jubilees will tell you that the reason why Cain actually killed Abel had nothing to do with God showing one favor other than the other. That it was the basic of basic. It was over a woman. Awan was promised to Abel, and Cain and Awan were in love. So Cain killed Abel, and when he got thrown out, Awan went with him. She left with him. And Seth ended up marrying Azura. And the Book of Jubilees will tell you that God's divine plan carried on through Seth. And I did not know that, man. I did not know that. I did not know that there were women involved in there. And again, the Book of Jubilees will lead you to believe that he wasn't dealing with God. He was dealing with one of these type of angels that he was talking to, or whatever he was doing down there. And it wasn't a divine figure. And even that makes another sense if you read the Book of Genesis, or, you know, they'll tell you God showed up, looked at the blood, and asked Cain, where is Abel? And he says, how do I know? Am I my brother's keeper? Now, God would know if he was dead, and he wouldn't have to ask that question. Or it could be rhetorical. You walk into your kid's room, he took a Sharpie and made a dinosaur on the wall, and he said, who did this? Well, of course you know it was him.
Not me.
Yeah, not me. No. So
not me.
Could be something like that. But I found that fascinating, Jay. I found it, and I don't know if it's my human nature. I found it believable, right?
Here's the thing, man. I really do think the more and more I research this stuff and the more correlations I find, the more I think that this is an ancient story that's been passed down over generations and generations. It got a little bit tweaked here and there. But, I mean, come on, dude. Like, he sent lieutenants out, angels to guard every nation.
Yeah.
And then you have all of the nations saying, well, these angels, these things came down from the sky and they taught us how to make swords and shit, right?
Bro, I'm telling you, man.
Everywhere. And it's not just like,
no.
I mean, if it was contained to Mesopotamia, that would be one thing. But it's not.
It's not. So you heard about this?
Over.
You heard about this UAP egg stuff that's going on, right? There's a famous tale in Japan where the Japanese talk about their goddess coming out of the ocean in an egg, right? You can go look it up, right? It's.
Oh yeah, no, I'm vaguely familiar with that story.
And she was also involved when Genghis Khan, who was a legit savage, was going to attack Japan the first time. A storm hit him and wiped his fleet out, right? And then he went back a second time. The storm got it again, but it didn't, it kind of, didn't totally
knocked
destroy
him down, but not out.
Yeah. So he made landfall in northern part of Japan. And then he got to meet the samurai, and he basically F around and found out, and he got back on boats, and they went back and stayed over there where their horses could be used against him, right? So, I mean, the samurai, so I'll go toe to toe with anybody that says the Mongolian.
Japanese were not to be messed with at that time period.
They were not to be messed with. So, matter of fact, the only people ever to conquer Japan is us, and we had to drop 2 nukes on them. That's a true story.
Yeah, it's rough, dude.
These Japanese pacifists that now, nothing about the samurai. I even made a comment the other day, man. Samurai.
That is a passing fad.
Yeah, the samurai needs to rise again. But
I think it's on its way back, I believe.
In their mythos, that lady in that egg was the reason why the storm knocked out the invaders, right?
Interesting.
But also, you make a good correlation, because Jay, what we do, we tie in. We're multiverse when it comes to source checking, right? And we are familiar with these Sumerian tablets. We know about the Anunnaki. We know well about the correlation of the Watchers and the Anunnaki. We know very well about that.
And it reaches past that. Like it goes into China, and like India.
Yeah.
And the Norse and Indian legends are startlingly familiar and share a lot between the two.
Yeah. 200
which
watchers
speaks to
200 watchers came down, and you only know the names about 4 of them, right? Really, you only know the 4 names really that are common right in there, right?
Yeah, they don't really talk about the rest.
Yeah, you don't know much about the 196 because they spread all over the world, right?
Exactly.
And so
and
here
who's
goes
to
into,
say that they didn't take? And who's to say they didn't take? Like, who's to say that that Enoch's account was the only account of what was happening all over the place?
Yeah.
Like, if you've got these other entities all over the world, and they're doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, which is educating the native population and trying to like do a little kind of an uplift thing.
build pyramids.
Right? Build pyramids.
Exactly right.
I mean, it feels weird, man. Right?
Yeah. And also, too, the Book of Jubilees goes on to talk a little bit about the battle between Esau and Jacob. That's pretty much the same stuff right there. The birth of, the Edomites, which turned into the...
And then you have genetic histories, right?
Exactly, man.
And that's important, too, right? Because if you have the wrong bloodlines crossing, you can get some abominating kind of thing.
And so that's where it gets, this is where it gets a little... I can see why... This was originally written for a Jewish manuscript, and I can see why they kind of, the next two things I'm going to tell you, I can see why one of them they would embrace it, and the other one they totally reject it, right? Which they did. It's not in there anymore. It's not canon. It talks about not mixing your blood with other people, keeping your bloodlines pure, and that type of stuff. Which, okay, that all went away when Jesus Christ came down here as well. In fact, that all goes.
But there was enough genetic diversity at that point, though.
Yeah, for sure, right? So, but also too, the reason why they took this out is because the two most, I would almost argue, the two most important women in the Bible are these two women named Ruth and Rahab, and they're both, Jesus came out of their bloodline. Ruth is the only woman in the New Testament who has a whole entire book of her, the Book of Ruth. It's the only one. She's the only woman in there. Not, Eve and Mary, sure.
Right, but
not a competition, ladies. Not in Bible scholars out there. Not a competition.
And we didn't do this.
Yeah, I'm just saying that Ruth and Rahab were not Jews, right? Jesus is born out of the line of Judah, and he's not a pure blood. And so again, when he came and went through his ordeal and sacrificed himself, all this goes away. We're not even supposed to sacrifice anymore. He was the Lamb of God, was the last sacrifice. That's another reason why, I don't know why more people don't see this. Jews are the only people that still do blood sacrifice. They're the only one.
Do they though?
Yeah, they're trying to get those red heifers together, man. They're going to kill 10 perfect red heifers. Every year,
I know that there's some other religions out there that do blood sacrifice.
In New York, I've seen pictures of them circling chickens around their head to absorb their.
That's Santeria.
Cut it up, nah, man. Look it up.
It's not Jewish.
That's not, and that's voodoo. Voodoo's not a religion, bro.
Oh, Santeria is a religion.
Yeah, isn't that? Yeah, that's for like witchcraft, though.
It's a religion.
Okay.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying anything other than Santeria. It's a legit. Look it up, man. Just look it up. It's a legit religion, but
I don't count demon worship as a religion, but by the letter of the definition, yes, Jay, you're correct, man.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you call a demon, right?
Yeah. So,
anyway,
stop. But here's the other reason why this book was rejected, and it comes down again. It comes down again to time. The Book of Jubilees goes on again to hammer home that we are on a divine calendar, and that everything that is written must come to pass, including the Book of Revelations. And in the Book of Revelations, the tribes of Israel, they don't do too good, right? So they talks about their second coming being, it talks about the Messiah coming for them, right? And the Book of Revelations will tell you that the Messiah that shows up in the end times is the Antichrist, right? So that's where you have this huge rift in the Book of Jubilees, because the Book of Jubilees is saying, yes, that all has to happen, right? It all has to happen, right? So that's a major split, because modern day Judaism, they think that the Messiah will come and that he's the real deal and we're all wrong, right? But according to the Book of Jubilees, the scripture written out as it is has to play out. It's been ordained that that's right, and that no matter what they do, That's going to happen. That caused a huge
rift.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like that's like playing Russian roulette. Like one of us is not going to live, right? So like you either tell me it's this way or it's just that way. So that's what caused the rift and caused the split. Now, that right there in itself goes into another paradoxical type of debate for me, is that you agree on 9 out of 10 things, but the one thing that you disagree on, all the other 9 have to go away, right? And I get it, man. The Book of Revelations is Game of Thrones, right? I get it, man. Like that's not a pleasant read, man. The ending's happy, but the 7 years of tribulation, not so much, right?
Okay. So here's my thoughts on that. That was written way later, like 100 years after Jesus' crucifixion, right?
No, the Book of Revelations.
The Book of Revelation
was written by John. Maximum.
Yeah, John of Petros.
Maximum 30 years. Written. Yeah, 30 years. He was in a cave. He was in a cave and he wrote it down. Yeah.
All right, so regardless,
less than a
prophecy is a tricky thing.
We'll say a generation.
Doesn't matter.
It was written in one generation. It was written, right, 70 years.
It doesn't even matter because their technological level would have been about the same. I'm talking about perspective, right?
Oh yeah, no,
so
for
when
sure.
he's writing these things down, you have to think of a dude who was alive about 2,000 years ago.
Oh yeah, no concept of a helicopter, right? For sure, man, or tanks or bioweapons.
Feel me? And so the things that he is describing are as good of an explanation as he can get of what he's seeing.
Yeah.
And with prophecy, it's like, what, like can you even wrap your head around like what it would be like to 2,000 years ago? Like that's like, I mean.
Yeah, and it's a perfect example of that is talking about the portals, the sky rolling back like a scroll. I mean, he's talking about a portal, right? I mean, that's a perfect example of it.
Exactly.
But anyway, but that doesn't. Yeah, man, but still, it's death and chaos and a lot of smoke, a lot of fire, and a lot of not good stuff happening. And according to the Book of Jubilees, ain't nothing we can do to stop it, man. So all we can do is hopefully prolong it, right?
It's fascinating to me that is kind of one of those things, right? That they're calling it like a deterministic timeline.
They actually call it the divine schedule. I'm like, okay.
Right. Okay. So
did he say schedule or schedule? Schedule. It's a divine schedule.
I had a conversation a long time ago, right? Schedule. About like, okay. This is going to get weird for a moment. You ready? You ready to go down a rabbit hole for 5 minutes?
We're going to wrap it up in this rabbit hole. Let's do it.
Artificial intelligence. If time is not restricted, at some point, and it seems inevitable at this point, we will invent an artificial superintelligence. What if the sacred timeline is static because that artificial superintelligence is guaranteeing its own creation?
Yeah. No, that's actually that's a good. I mean, and even make it even weirder. We'll call the divine schedule a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Right.
And so, so you've made comments on this channel before that still stand. Is that any 2,000 years ago, a cell phone would look like magic, right? So,
absolutely.
And so, of course, even now, today,
right,
there's going to be something that happens probably in our lifetime that's going to be like, that is amazing. I don't even know how that happens. I don't even know how that works. That would appear to be magic to even ourselves, right?
Right.
So science, the younger Adrias, here's a perfect example before we wrap this up, man. The younger Adrias, they'll tell you, caused the flood, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what scientists will say.
Right.
People back in all the stuff we read will say God caused the flood.
Yep.
Or the Anunnaki caused the flood. No one wants to say God caused the flood with an anti-gravity device. He slung an asteroid at the Earth. Two things can be true at the same time, people. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, and it's an interpretation of what they saw.
Of course, an asteroid hit the Earth and caused the flood, right? So that means God's not real.
Who's to say they didn't sling at it?
Exactly right.
They didn't sling a comet at us, right?
Exactly right. So yeah.
So this thing says, this is what's really interesting, right? So early texts describe it in a very dry way. Mm-hmm. The Atrahasis epic describes the event as using surprisingly technical language. It mentions the flood being created through multiple synchronized systems, the waters of the earth joining with the waters above. Text describes specific mechanisms being released or activated rather than just rain falling.
Yep.
There's mention of something specific like a barrier or dome being breached, which could be described, which could be interpreted as describing atmospheric or oceanic engineering.
Yeah.
Right? Like
saying the same thing in two different and talking in different ways. But anyways, Jay, Book of Jubilees, where you rating it?
I think it's a first context story. I love it. I love the Book of Jubilees. Yeah. It's so interesting to like delve into things that we have no idea what happened.
I could have done with the Cliff Notes. Don't get me wrong.
It is a little dry.
It's dry, man. It's right up your alley, man. It's dry. Like I don't. It's dry. But however, Enigmites, I will say this: you should read it once. I will say you should read the Book of Jubilees one time, right?
Or at least ask ChatGPT about it.
Yeah, or go in there and at least check into the divine calendar, check into the daughters of Adam, check into that. That was pretty cool stuff in there. I will say I learned something on that. I didn't know that. Also, it will tell you that the divine language is Hebrew, but I'm like, all right, consider the source. But yeah, sure, divine language is Hebrew.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think it's a good read one time. I will not be reading it again. From now on, I will be going in there looking. If I need some data out of it, I will go in there again and take a look at it.
Hit my bot up, right? You'll be asking my bot.
Yeah, man. I'll go in there and ask your bot, or I will be specifically searching out case and verse and calling it a day. The next part we're going to break down is the Book of Jasher, and that is supposed to be a little bit more my speed. A little bit weirder. Yeah. We'll get on that. Anyways, Enigmites, stuck around this long, do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. We're a breath away from breaking 2,000 followers. We're doing good. I'm getting happy with that, man. And again, also, too, a lot of you guys have reached out to us. I put a YouTube community post up about what more content you guys would like to see. And 45% of you guys said you want to see more stuff like this. Me and Jay breaking down ancient civilizations. And am I not entertaining? Are you not entertained? Right?
Apparently.
Right? So I will do one of these. We will dress up like Romans or gladiators or something.
Oh, you're not gonna make me put on a toga.
Yeah, man.
You're
gonna get into it, man. You're gonna put on a visor or whatever, Spartacus helmet. We'll do something. We'll get into it.
Okay.
But let us know in the comments what you found interesting about this episode, what you found interesting about our divine calendar, or if you got any dust you want to sprinkle on it, something we got wrong, because you guys love to let me know when one of us gets something wrong, right?
Get something wrong.
You love it. Well, you love it. You know what, man? I love it. I love it that you love it too. What? So anyways, Jay, got anything else?
No, I'm good. I had a nice well down the rabbit hole this evening on this thing.
And you know how I do. That's all you get for $1, nerds. We're out.
Subscribe now and turn on the notifications to join us on this extraordinary journey into the unknown.